Today I am going to be starting on a quilt. I'm going to be using a pattern. I purchased the fat quarter pattern, backing and binding from a stacked fabric company. They're based in Saskatchewan. And then I have this basting, which is like the filling, from Funky Monkey in Watford. This is my first quilt, and I'm doing it for co-op credits because of the current situation. This is the sewing machine I'm using today. It is a Singer Fashion Mate Model 237. It is a very old machine, but it works very, very well. I had to learn a lot to understand this machine. It's not as intuitive as some other machines. It is threaded from the left to the right. For this project, I'm going to be using a cream colored thread. It's brand new, so I shouldn't have any issues. I did do some research and was told that for beginners, quilting with a walking foot is a good idea. But upon consultation with my Oma, who makes a lot of quilts, she says that that's not necessary, so I'm not going to. I'm going to be making the throw size, which needs 15 fat quarters, 5/8 of a yard binding, and 3.5 yards backing. It is a 52-inch by 72-inch. According to my pattern, the first thing that I need to do is cut out some squares, rectangles. 72 total. From the final fat quarter, I only need to cut 2. So this is the fat quarter, and it has all these super duper fun kind of designs. I really like this one. I didn't think I'd be a fan of like that kind of trendy mustard or whatever, but I actually like the look of it, which is kind of interesting for me. But there's all these different fun colors, so I have to pick 15. And then here I have 2 fat quarters on top from the same bundle, but I've set them aside because I purchased the binding fabric, which is found in the fat quarter, but I purchased a yard extra. And then this is the backing fabric, which I purchased 4 yards of that. I set these 2 fat quarters aside because I don't think I really want them to be in the pattern. I don't know if I want to use them, if that's too matchy-matchy, or if it's good. Something that I did not pick up was a clear ruler, which they were out of stock of when I was buying my different supplies. I don't know if these are going to come out as square as I'd like them to. Maybe I'll just start off with the fabrics that I really like. So I've pulled 16. I put 2 off to the side, and then there's these 2 up here. I still have 1 too many, so who's getting cut? I decided to take this one out. I felt it just wasn't vibing. I'm working with just about 2 of each pattern. Ooh, I have 3 kind of astronautical. Hey, that's a smart one. My little castaways. I'm not a fan of the greens and the yellow. About basting, I don't have any safety pins, so I'm gonna get to cutting. It's my first time using a rotary cutter, which my mom would like to remind me again that it is very sharp. I know that because I've been told by every single cutter. I don't know what I'm going to do with all this power. Wow, I'm so confident in my abilities. I don't know if I'm supposed to press all of these, because looking at it now, there's like a wrinkle in here. No, I don't want to pre-wash. But I've been told not to press or iron your yardage before starting to cut for piecing. Oh, is that what this is? Piecing? I've never felt so confident and yet had so little information. I have to pre-wash my fabric? Because then I can't start doing this today. I'm really confused. I don't know if there's a difference between pressing and ironing. I know I'm ironing right now. Don't know if I care. With my rotary blade, I'm going to be cutting out rectangles. I'm starting with my favorite because I want to have this in the quilt as much as possible. I did consider, I should be very careful that I don't take the safety off so I don't slice my neck. I should say that I did consider to, see now I'm thinking about the blade, I should probably put that away. I considered only cutting out 2 rectangles because there will be a quarter that I only cut to 2 out of, and then that I could just use all this fun print just for my own purposes, and then I realized I probably would just hold on to it forever because it's pretty. All of these fat quarters have been ironed. I didn't show all of that, but it was a very monotonous task. 2.5 hours maybe. I just decided to iron instead of pre-washing them. From what I've learned, every quilter has their own way of doing things. Some never pre-wash, some exclusively pre-wash. I'm actually really excited to start cutting. This cutting board is brand new, so it smells really bad. It smells like the dollar store in a biology classroom. But self-healing, oh my goodness, this is so cool. I had a brainwave. The brainwave was I'm going to be making a template that I just hold and cut. It says, praying your Christmas season brings you quiet moments to reflect upon the majesty and wonder of the Savior. My template idea, wow, a good idea. Not a good idea when it's a little bit after the sun goes down, but I've been squinting all day and just enjoying my life. But at about 8:40ish, I called it quits because I started to cut part of the template off every time I was making a cut. So these rectangles aren't perfectly rectangular, but they're very close. I decided that's not what I want to do. I'm not going to spend time on making everything so precise to like the thread because that doesn't get me anywhere, just frustrated. I have 14 more fat quarters to do. This ruler is really like rigid and there's a bend in this table, which I'm realizing maybe that's why my cuts aren't very straight. I have simplified my approach. So what I have done is I have a stack. These ones are perfect, ready to go, as good as it's gonna get for me. This is a stack that is roughly cut. I wish my ruler was a little bit longer. I should totally use the lines on my mat. Wouldn't that be a smart idea? Let's see how this one goes. That's alright. Your ruler is never wrong, but your fabric might be. I think I just cut off more of my template. Oops. I get really straight lines on the pieces that I'm throwing out. A little bit of yesterday and a good chunk of today I've been cutting up all of my fat quarters into rectangles. And I just pulled out my pattern so I can start doing the fun stuff, which is matching up patterns. Currently in French class we are reading Le Petit Prince. This pattern here really reminds me of the kind of overall aesthetic that's going on in that story. 3 inches up from the bottom, here. On the left side, that's here. Down from 3 inches on the right, that'd be here. Cut diagonally between these 2 points. So between this line here and this line here, I have to make a diagonal cut. I hope I succeed with what I'm doing right now. So take the top of one print and the bottom of the print that would be behind it. So that would be this top and then this bottom, and place them right sides together, matching up along the diagonal line. The corner point should not match up perfectly. There needs to be about a 1/4 inch overlap, and I have to use a 1/4 inch seam sew along the diagonally cut edge. Open the rectangle and press the seam. Repeat to make all of the blocks from stack 1. I'm going to cut, match, clip, stack, and then I have to do the exact same thing from stack 2, but instead I have to measure 3 inches down here and 3 inches up from the bottom on the right side and make that line there. I'm doing a throw size, so I need 72 blocks total. But I know that I cut a few too many fat quarter rectangles, so I would have 3 left over. However, one of the fat quarters I cut from, 2 of the rectangles were just a little too small, so I made my mom a mask so she can go grocery shopping. What a straight line. These are all of the stack 1 cuts, and these are all of the stack 2 cuts. I ran out of clips. I knew I was going to run out of clips, so I've just been using little pins. Let's get her going. So here's the first one. This was relatively easy. I'm just sewing a straight line. So this fabric is a lot stretchier than I thought it was going to be. For cotton, I didn't think it had that much stretch to it. So that's 1 of 72 done. So I'm going to need 9 blocks in every row, and I'm going to need 8 rows, which means 9 times 8 is 72. And then just alternate them between stacks 1 and 2 and swap to get the desired arrangement. And then I have to press all of the odd number rows to the left and the even number rows to the right. Sew the rows together, matching the seams, press, and then the top's complete. And then we move on to basting. So I just finished doing a flat lay. That took me like about an hour. I just ended up randomly placing them, and now I'm just gonna go through and move some of these. This is the placement that I've decided to go with. I played around with it a bit last night and then I moved it to the floor. Well, this quilt is a lot bigger than I thought it was gonna be. I guess I don't have a very good grasp on measurement. Underneath it I have a quilt that well, we've had it for a while. And you can't even see it, like it's covering pretty much the entire quilt. So just this row over here, or actually that'd be a column, is off almost completely. The bottom is just a little bit off, and on the top there's an overhang. Initially, my thought process was I'm going to do a different color on the top, or a different color and pattern, and then just kind of repeat that with the tops going all the way through. And then I was really struggling because the bottoms would match with the tops of the next row. I didn't really want that because I was like, I want it to be 100% different. That's just not possible without really planning it out. You can see this being a pretty sick quilt. This combination though, I love it. If we're measuring the quilt, it's longer than my leg. I wanted to do a queen size quilt initially. We don't have a queen size bed, so I didn't really know how big that would be, but I was like, it'll be so much fun, there'll be so much fabric, there's so much cutting, and like I'll have enough hours and it'll be great, like it'll be great. And then I realized how much fabric I'd have to buy, and I was like, I'll go with a twin. I couldn't find anything I liked for a twin that was still in a decent price point. I don't want to spend a lot of money building a quilt for my first time. So I was like, I guess I'll go with a throw. And I was kind of disappointed because I was like, it's just a throw. Disappointment increases. I don't have anybody to answer to on this. I just wanted to have balance in the colors, which I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking this is a little bit much, these three so close together. I'm not moving anything. I can only invest so much time into this without being frivolous. At this point, it's probably been about 4 hours of trying to figure this out, which is just, it's dumb. I just kind of want to start sewing. I kid you not, literally every time I'm filming a video, either somebody calls or they knock on the door. And then I just have this poor little, lonely one. Well, it's quite perfect actually. This is right, this is wrong. Oh. Oops. I sewed the one block upside down. So yesterday I finished 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. I've had a little bit of trouble with matching this up and also still having a good, there's like a little bit of overlap here. Or not overlap, I don't know. Like this is, I would say pretty, that's a decent amount of, I'm at a loss for words. If you check my reference photo, it's kind of funny, the second seam that I did yesterday, I had to pull it all the way out because I sewed the wrong sides. So, I'm not making that mistake again. Welcome to a little bit of frustration. So this needs to match up with this so we can have a nice point. Like, this is a good example. If I match up the top, if I went like this, it wouldn't, like, it would be messed up. Like that's what it would look like. That doesn't look good. Some of my cuts were not precise enough, and that's presented in this, because this was supposed to be 3 inches, and that's probably 2. That's gotta be 2 inches. Like, this was fine, and this was fine. Sort of, well, yeah, it's pretty good. It doesn't look so bad if you don't look too close, perhaps, maybe. So this is why it's important to Make sure all your measurements are the same. This one here isn't perfect, that's already sewn. And there's a little bit of a step there. So am I just gonna have to eat it? Maybe. And why is this one in the middle too? Do it quick so I don't regret it. It's not like I have to match up lines though. Like that would have really messed me up if I had lines. If I was doing like a pinstripe or something. Or a pattern. Like at least these are going the same way. I'm struggling. Every time I have to sew a seam that has a little extra here. Oh, right, where I have one that's shorter than the other. I don't know if I want to line it up with the shorter one and then have like an extra 1/8 on top of the quarter. Or if I want to line it up with the outside one. This is a great learning experience. So. Okay, that's not too bad. Maybe I'll just buy this quilt for myself. So. What I've found has been the best thing is to match up the lengths on this. So on the short side, just match these two up. So wherever this ends, that's where your point is. And in this case, it looks like it goes right to the corner. Here, clip, I probably don't need that many clips. Flip it open, check. That's pretty close. Make sure if there's any kind of string, you push them out or you remove them, if possible. That's one thing I've found that I really don't like about this project is there's so many strings. If I only made like one mistake on this whole quilt, I think I would probably cry. Like tears of joy. So yeah, that's pretty good, I think. I'm really hoping that my stitching stays. Because I can just imagine that I'm gonna rip this apart and it's just gonna all like fall. I fear my failure, that's what I fear. I ironed all of these seams oppositely. I've just clipped them so I can start sewing. They look like they are lined up nicely, so I'm not super worried anymore about having too many large gaps. There are a couple spots I'll show you in a moment before I start sewing that are, well, they're not perfect, but it looks pretty good. There's this one, that's also about the same size. This here is perfect, and then this one, so I think this is the problem child, or this one up here is the problem child. I'm gonna eat it and let it be. I don't see an issue with it. This is a little bit longer here. This is a lot longer. So, I'm not sure that this quilt is gonna be super straight. Oh, maybe it'll be straight, but it might be a little bit smaller than it's supposed to be. This is what we have sewn together so far, somewhat. This here and this here, only issues. Everything else is matched up nice. I'm just sewing, well, I'm clipping to sew this here. I've decided to make it a little bit more fun and use complementary color clips. So for these ones, you probably saw earlier, I was using red clips along the side seams. And then in the middle here, I used green clips. And then here, I'm using purple clips along the side seams and yellow clips in the middles. There's, I think it's a 1/4 inch between this line and this line. So I thought about moving it over a little bit, but from what I've noticed, I think it's just because this, I probably have a block somewhere in here that's just a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger. So I'm not gonna measure it or anything. I don't think that needs to be done. But these seams almost match up from here and here, but these ones are a little bit farther off. And then the end is about, I'd say, a 1/4 inch here and maybe an 1/8 of an inch. So this one's a little bit more of a narrow block. That could be due to the sewing here, but it looks like a perfect 1/4 inch. So maybe I cut it a little bit small, maybe I cut these ones a little bit bigger. You never know what could influence the size. Maybe there's another block in this second row that was wrong. I'm learning as I'm going, but I'm very, very impressed so far. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too high, but I'm very, very impressed so far as to how good it looks. I have to sew my last 3 rows onto my topper. I left this on Saturday because I was a little bit frustrated. I thought I was going to finish it, and I didn't. I'm kind of frustrated now because I'm looking at my stitches. It's good to let it sit for a little bit. This has popped out here because that was too thin. And this one popped out here as well. I was really impressed. I think I mentioned that earlier, but just to reiterate, I was really impressed with how the first 4 rows all came together. And then this 5th row here, a little bit off. I'm not too worried about that one. This is a little off, also not too worried about it. This one's a little off, not too worried about it. That's about it. Everything else is pretty, almost perfect. The fact that these blocks are not the same size, this is going to affect the next row that I was going to sew onto it, which is the one underneath here. So this is the next row to sew on. This is row number 6. And I'm going to sew it to number 5. I was lining it up and there's a lot of gaps. So that was quite frustrating, and I was thinking, do I do something stupid and like try to fold it under and sew over top? But I'm going to struggle with that if I'm stitching in the ditch. It's good that I took the weekend off, because while I was able to focus on other projects such as sleeping, Sudoku, going for walks, watching transport trucks pass tractors downhill, things like that, you know, simple stuff. But I'm back to the 3. I'm just kind of thinking over different solutions. One of the things that popped into my head, I could line everything up perfectly, clip at everything, or not perfectly, but just go row by row. I might have to pick out the stitches of that last row here because it's kind of popping out, and my seam allowance isn't that great. So I could pick out that row of stitches and move things up a bit, which means lengthwise these blocks might be not the same size. So if I made my seam allowance here a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, this is a 1/4 inch, but here, like, that's where it pops right through. So that's not even a 1/4 inch on the bigger fabric. So doing a 1/4 on the shortest, smallest fabric, doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the smallest fabric would make all of these blocks a bit shorter. Proportionally, they wouldn't be, this to here is not going to be the same as this to here if I pick out this last row of stitches. I'm very proud of my work so far. Kind of frustrated that I didn't cut them perfectly, and so then I sewed them and I couldn't sew them perfectly. And now that I'm sewing these rows together, I can't do those rows together perfectly. Ugh, I can't undo what I've done, right? So I just have to go full steam ahead. I said to myself I was gonna do an entire quilt. Remember, done is better than perfect. I think I'm gonna clip it all together and make note of the glaringly obvious issues. My points, like, I don't even notice how these points aren't super perfect anymore. Now I'm just looking at the lines. I picked out the stitches on this block here, and I sewed a wider seam allowance. The block itself looks a little bit skinny, and by a little bit I mean rather skinny. That's the best thing that I can do without re-sewing this entire row. How important is a perfect seam? I don't know! Ah! Alright, I'll let you know what I decide. There's no point in watching me struggle over this. Well, I took my rotary cutter to it, and I just straightened it out. These blocks are definitely going to be a lot shorter than these ones. I think they measured 8.5-ish, and these will be closer to 9. This is the last hopeful stitching I need to do for this stupid topper. I'm not frustrated at all. Not one bit. I'm done my, pardon me, my topper, and I'm a little nervous to see how it turns out.